Good morning and welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, Massachusetts.
That was lovely. Welcome to the Unitarian Church in Fall River, where we think religious questions are important, but we want to work out our own answers, where we gather to share ideas and support one another. We gather this hour as people of faith, having sorrows and joys and needs and gifts. We light this beacon of hope as a sign of our quest for truth and meaning, and in celebration of the life we share together. Can we join please in our opening hymn, number 27, whose title I actually don't know because I was so taken by the fact that the words were by Hildegard of Bingen, the medieval...
I am that great and fiery force.
Aha, thank you. I am that great and fiery force, number 27.
I'm going to play tribute to it. It's not super I
Could we please join in our affirmation, which is in the order of service? Love is the doctrine of this church. The quest of truth is its sacrament, and service is its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge and freedom, to serve human need, to the end that all souls shall grow into harmony with the divine, thus to be covenant with each other and with God. As an invocation today, I'd like to read Walt Whitman sounding a little bossy. He's telling us how to live our lives. But I think there's a lot of wisdom in what he says. This is what you should do, he says. Love the earth and the sun and the animals. Despise riches. Give alms to everyone that asks. Stand up for the stupid and crazy. This is before political correctness, right? Stand up for the stupid and crazy. Devote your income and labor to others. Hate tyrants. Argue not concerning God. You Unitarian Universalists, you listen to this. Argue not concerning God. Have patience and indulgence toward people. And re-examine all that you have been told at school or church or in any book and dismiss whatever insults your soul. Good going, Walt. This was given to me by someone who could not have thought I was going to ever wear it, and I'm not. It's going to go into the basket for warm clothing for homeless people. Last year, it was my fault. We collected clothing too long. I was still making announcements in January and February, but by then, the places that give warm clothing to homeless people had met all their needs for that season. But now is the time to be collecting warm clothes for homeless people, November and December. So by New Year's, we'll stop doing this, but what we should do it now. You may have noticed, some of you, that we have clothing left over. There's a room over here, a kind of parlor on the left. There are bags of clothing left over because we collected it so long that the places couldn't use it. Okay, but we'll deliver all that this year and start collecting it again. And I have one more announcement, which is that there's a potluck next week. The code is second Sunday of every month, potluck. So that would be next week. Are there other announcements?
Election day is Tuesday.
It is, yes.
Please don't forget to vote.
Yes, yes, yes. Kit would say who's preaching next week.
Paul Sprecher.
Paul Sprecher. Thank you. Thank you. Other announcements? Could we please be joined in a spirit of prayer or meditation? May we not make assumptions about other people. Staying open to people is tough enough without that. Let us not assume, for example, that someone who sells used cars is less honest than we are, or that someone who looks like a basketball player even knows the rules. Let us not assume that someone who is liberal religiously is liberal politically. Let us not assume that someone who appears standoffish wouldn't like to meet us. Let us not assume that someone who seems argumentative and cranky is sorry that she came today. Let us not assume that someone who's always cheery and upbeat is without pain. Let us not assume that a person who believes in things that we find silly has nothing to offer us. Let us not assume that someone who rubs us the wrong way has nothing in common with us. Let us not assume that someone who doesn't speak well has nothing to say to us. Let us not assume that someone who doesn't talk much about his feelings doesn't have any. May we not make assumptions about one another. Staying open is tough enough without that. And now let us be silent together to create an opportunity for prayer or meditation. Spirit of life, come unto me. Sing in my heart all the stirrings of compassion. Blow in the wind, rise in the sea, move in the hand, the shape of justice. Hold me close, wings set me free. Spirit of life, come to me, come to me. Making stacks of stones has become a kind of fad. There's a guy in my neighborhood who has a stack of stones at the end of his driveway. Sometimes when I go walking in the woods, I'll find stacks of stones that people have left. If you go to a beach, often there'll be stacks of stones. I was at a provincial park in Canada a couple of years ago, and they had a picture of something like this on a bulletin board, and the rangers had said, "Don't do this. Take only pictures, leave only footprints," right? That's what parks are supposed to be. And you're kind of violating that if you do that. It's become a fad. You see it everywhere. But I want to tell you about the very first time I encountered a stack of stones. And it was a stack that looked quite a bit like that one. This was 50 years ago. I can't believe this. This was 50 years ago. Well, a little more, maybe around 1973. I had started working at Stonehill College, but I was still living in Boston. At Stonehill, it's amazing. They have 500 acres, and no more than a third of it is used for the campus. The rest is just woods with trails and old roads and foundations of old farms. It had been an estate. Some rich person about 1900 had bought up a lot of small property owners and created this huge estate, which wound up in the hands of an order of Catholic priests. And there's a story in that, but I don't want to get off the.
They were Unitarians,
The Ameses, yes, the estate owners were Unitarians. Well, let me tell a story since we're here. That was Frederick Lothrop Ames who assembled this estate about 1900, and his son Freddie lived there too, and was an airplane enthusiast. And they, in fact, had a runway on what is now the Stonehill campus. This is in the 20s, early 30s. And Freddie married a Catholic woman. And she was not made to feel welcome by the Ameses. They were all Unitarians and looked down on Catholics. Well, in the 30s, 35 or so, Freddie died in a plane crash in Randolph. And so his wife came into possession of this 500-acre estate. And there was an order of Catholic priests in Dartmouth, the Congregation of Holy Cross. Those are the priests who run Notre Dame University. And they had a little place in Dartmouth, and she gave them the estate for a college. And that's how Stonehill wound up with this land. It was because of Unitarian snobbery. Anyway, it was June of, I think, 1973, and classes were over. I had to come down to campus to get something in my office. I arranged to have lunch with somebody, and I thought I'd come early and explore the woods. I had never done it before. So I was walking on a trail through the woods at Stonehill, and then in a little clearing, maybe 5 feet off the trail, there was a stack of stones like that. It was made up of some sharp, broken stones and some round ones like the one on the top. And I stopped and stared at it and said, what is this? What is this? And I only stopped for, a few seconds, then I continued on my walk, but I kept thinking about this thing. And on my drive back home to Boston that afternoon, I realized I felt I had been sent some kind of message by this. Someone was sending me a message, but I didn't know what the message was. And the sermon later is about that. That was Honeysuckle Rose. What was the very first piece you played at the prelude?
That was, Solace. Solace.
Solace.
Yes.
Yeah, 'cause that's familiar.
Scott Joplin.
Scott Joplin.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. And this was Fats Waller, right?
Yes.
Yeah. I like jazz, but I think it took a wrong turn about 1940. But these are things from before then. It turned out that off and on, for months, I kept thinking about the stack of stones and wondering what the message had been. And I remember I began by comparing it to other stacks of stones that I had seen. I thought of, I had climbed Mount Monadnock for the first time recently. And at the Mount Monadnock in southern New Hampshire has a rocky summit that is, you get above the tree line when you're on the top of Mount Monadnock, even though it's not really very tall. And at the top, if you follow the path is marked with blazes on trees going up. But then when the trees disappear, there are piles of stones called cairns to show you where the path is. And but this thing that I encountered at Stonehill wasn't sending that message. The message of the cairns on Mount Monadnock is, this is the way, this is the path. But the thing I was walking on at Stonehill was actually an old road, an old carriage road. It was 6 feet wide. I mean, there was no question about where the path was. The stack of stones was not trying to guide me. And then I thought, I had visited Walden State Park in Concord, where Henry David Thoreau had spent a couple of years in a cabin. And near the site of his cabin, there's a big pile of stones, but they're not artfully arranged like that. It's just a pile of stones, and often the stones have people's names on them that they've written with a little paint, or some even have little pictures on them. They're tokens left by people who've made the pilgrimage to Thoreau's cabin. But this wasn't anything like that. The stones in the pile of Thoreau's cabins, they're sending a message. The message is, I was here. There's something egotistical about them. There's something kind of spiritual about them too, but it was different. And then I thought of the Bunker Hill Monument. I was living in Boston, and if you live in Boston, you see the Bunker Hill Monument regularly. It's huge, right? It's on a hill in Charlestown, in a big square park. It's like the Washington Monument, but not so tall. It's not white, it's gray. It's a pile of stones, basically. I don't think it has a steel frame or anything. It probably has mortar between the stones, but it's basically a huge stack of stones. That's not what this was about. This was not memorializing a battle or anything like that. Well, that line of thought ran dry before too long, and then somewhere in there, I started thinking about the qualities of the stack of stones. Well, first it was human, but of course those other things I've just mentioned were human too. It was human, but human in a kind of delicate way. Um, it was fragile. This thing is fragile. Um, a dog could have knocked it over. A student could have knocked it over. A big wind would have moved the bushes near it and knocked it over. It was really fragile, nothing like the Bunker Hill Monument. Yet, though it was fragile, it was made out of durable parts. It's made out of stones. And like us, um, I'm fragile, right? I can easily catch my death or be run over by a bus, and before too many years, I'll be gone, no matter what. I'm fragile, but I'm made out of parts that are very durable. I'm thinking of the atoms in my body. The atoms in my body are billions of years old. They're older than the Earth. And they'll exist billions of years in the future. You know, I'm a very fragile thing made out of very durable things. And then I thought, wait a minute. I'm overthinking this. This is too much. No, that's not the message. I'm reading too much into this. The stack was anonymous, unlike the Bunker Hill Monument, which is certainly when it was built, everyone knew the people who were responsible for it, and everyone knew it was commemorating the 50th anniversary of the United States. Right? It was built in 1826. That was the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, and of course, it was commemorating the Battle of Bunker Hill. This stack is anonymous. There's no ego involved in this. The person who built this wasn't trying to project their ego in any way. It wasn't boastful in any way. It was a collaboration with nature. The stones were just found in that area, and it's just held together with gravity and friction. The only human contribution was the arrangement. It's a far cry from the Bunker Hill Monument, where a quarry was opened on a hill in Quincy, and the stones were cut out of the ground and then transported on what incidentally was the first railroad in the US to the shore of the Neponset River, where they were loaded on barges and taken up to Charlestown and then piled up. There's much less collaboration with nature. You know, it's hard to think of collaboration with nature when you look at the scar that the quarry in Quincy is. That quarry's still there. It's just this big, ugly hole in the ground. There's no money or politics involved with that. And there was a lot of money and a lot of politics involved in the construction of the Bunker Hill Monument. It's not obtrusive. The Bunker Hill Monument dominates the skyline of that part of Boston. It calls attention to itself by inconveniencing everybody. Traffic on that hill is much worse than it used to be because of this great big square plot of land that you have to drive around. And it takes the place of what were a lot of streets. It's obtrusive. It inconveniences you. This doesn't inconvenience you. It invites you. It invites your attention. In fact, it invites you to collaborate with it. You look at it and you think, gee, maybe I can get it done without knocking it over. I'm not sure I can. There's sort of a try. Ooh. What is it called? It invites that kind of collaboration. There's something friendly about it. There's something friendly, inviting about it. I'm reminded of a 3-year-old who might say to a stranger, "Hi." It's like that. It's saying hi, like a 3-year-old. And the 3-year-old might say, "Want to play?" Well, yeah, it invites you to play. Um, it focuses your attention on the present moment. Um, Monuments are not like that. The Bunker Hill Monument is focusing on the past. Um, Monuments tend to lie also. Um, Perpetual care they guarantee in graveyards. Well, not perpetual, long term maybe, but not perpetual. If you look at old graveyards where some of the stones have just crumbled, where some of the stones have tipped over and fallen and are face down and are slowly sinking into the earth, the Battle of Bunker Hill will never be forgotten. The bravery of these men will live forever. This is a lie. This is a lie. The Bunker Hill Monument is one of a number of monuments of the same shape, like the Washington Monument, that were built in the 19th century, and it had to do with Egyptian obelisks. In Egypt, there were monuments that looked like that, and some of them had been moved to European and maybe American cities. So people were familiar with the shape. I think, is it New York that has Cleopatra's Needle? There's an Egyptian obelisk that's been moved a long way from Egypt called Cleopatra's Needle, and I don't know if it's in London or in Paris. It might be in Central Park. I'm not sure. But the point is, these Egyptian obelisks that have been transported, no one remembers why they were built. No one remembers the pharaoh that they were supposed to honor, or the battle, or whatever. No one knows. You know, monuments lie when they say things will not be forgotten. Monuments foster an illusion of permanence, but this doesn't make any reference to the past. It brings me into the present moment. So here's this temporary thing like me, whose parts are long lasting, in a very fragile arrangement, which compared to something like the Bunker Hill Monument is ephemeral. It's ephemeral, it's momentary. It's like a sunset, or a kiss, or a baby's smile, or a sweet breeze on your face. And this thing is sending me a message. Someone has taken the trouble to leave me this greeting. It's like a friendly note in a bottle that you find on the beach. It's like a telegram from Nirvana, or a text message from Nirvana. I had been studying Buddhism at the time, and in the original Buddhism of Siddhartha Gautama, Nirvana was not some afterlife. Nirvana was what this life could be if you became blissful and focused on the present. It was something to be attained in this life. And this felt like that, like a text message from Nirvana. And following that line of thinking, I finally decided, and I'm not saying this is the truth or anything, this is just how I've come to think of this. I think of it as a stone koan. A koan is a nonsense question in Zen Buddhism whose whole purpose is to get your attention. Let me back up just a little bit. Buddhism was invented in India and spread, though, throughout that part of Asia. And when it got into China, it ran into another religion called Taoism. in China. And some people became both Buddhists and Taoists at the same time. They formed a new religion that was a kind of marriage of the two called Chan, C-H-A-N, Chan. That's in China. And when Chan went to Japan, it was renamed Zen. This is where Zen comes from. It's a marriage of Buddhism and Taoism. In Zen, there are these things called koans, K-O-A-N. And a koan is the most famous koan is, what is the sound of one hand clapping? Okay, that's a koan. It's a question that gets your attention because it's puzzling. But by getting your attention, it breaks the habits that most of us are pursuing. Most of us, most of the time, are either thinking about the past or planning for the future. And it may not be decades ago, it could be the past of 10 minutes ago, but the past. Like I pull up and I'm thinking about that jerk at the last intersection. I'm thinking about the past. Or we're planning for the future. I'm thinking about lunch. Or did I remember, can I get into the building? We're reflecting on the past or planning for the future most of the time, but the koan brings me into the present, and I'm not thinking about either one. It breaks that pattern. I remember someone years ago told me a rhyme, which you've probably heard, but I hadn't heard at the time, but I still remember it. She said, "Yesterday is history, tomorrow's a mystery. All we have is today. That's why it's called the present." I like that. All we have is today. Yesterday's history, tomorrow's a mystery. All we have is today. That's why it's called the present. And I decided that's what that thing was. It was a stone koan. And by the way, I learned the following summer, after I had gone through all of this, the following summer, there was a Buddhist retreat at Stonehill, using the buildings in the summer when classes weren't taking place. And I never was able to find out, but I wonder if the summer I saw this, if there had been a Buddhist retreat. Maybe some Buddhist built that. Maybe it is a stone koan. I don't know. I never found out. But I decided the message was, hi, everything is ephemeral. It's okay that you are too. Isn't it nice to be alive? Have a nice day. And now for the support of this congregation, the morning offering will be gratefully received, and I hope freely given. And now's our time of sharing joys and concerns. Walter went to the bathroom. I don't know if he has one or not, but
Okay, stones. A couple of weeks ago, Nancy and I were out at the end. We went out to the Antasket Beach and went right out to the end of the peninsula at Hull Gut. And there, it's quite a seascape there. The water going past there is kind of nasty. And there were trillions of skipping stones on the beach there. And there have been several times when I wish I had a stone to put on a grave. So I gathered up a bunch of stones and put them in a bag and just put them in my car, so for a truck or whatever, so someday I come up to a grave. Actually, over at the Bridgewater State College, there's a little bronze statue of, what's the kid's name that was killed in a bombing? Anyway, Martin Richards, and his parents were Bridgewater State University alums, and they donated or whatever money to put up this kind of memorial garden, including this little statue. And there are a bunch of stones on the base of the statue. Some have, little paintings on them, some are just a stone, but it was kind of, I'm here and I'm with you. Message. That's my stone story.
Yes.
So I have the privilege today of giving a gift to a young man.
a little closer.
Yes, sir? Okay. I had the privilege to give a gift to a young man. And he's preteen, but he's gifted in many ways. He's on the autism spectrum, but incredibly capable of certain things. For example, last year he wanted a vacuum cleaner, and he didn't want to clean, didn't want the vacuum cleaner to clean up the house. He wanted the vacuum cleaner so he could take it apart. And often he would be able to put things back together. I can remember one time when this young man was about 4 years old. He had come to our house, never been there before, and I happened to have a chimney in the back porch, oddly shaped chimneys for a fireplace. He had never seen it before. As far as I know, he never knew what a chimney was, but the wind had blown the top of the cover off of the chimney. It was laying on the deck. And he looked at it. This is a 4-year-old little boy. Looked at it, picked it up, and reached up to put it up on top of the chimney. He was too short, so I did the rest of the work for him. But he knew instinctively what that metal was for. So for this birthday, he wanted a sump pump. And parents are not in a position to be able to buy lavish toys. And I happen to have a sump pump laying in the basement that I've never used. So today he's going to get a sump pump. With no doubt they have to turn it apart by now. Or buy something out, I should say. Thank you.
I just have a quick joy, is that my ability now is getting better. If anyone didn't know, I have frozen shoulder, arthritis, just a mess of stuff in each shoulder, torn rotator. I'm in a lot of pain constantly, but in the last month it was worse, but now it's getting a little more, I don't know, I'm getting used to the pain and the suffering, but I'm working on it and getting exercise and doing my therapy twice a week. But my whole point was, a year ago, things weren't the way they are today. 2 years ago was worse, even before when COVID started. But I've had a bumpy road, a lot of downfalls, but things are finally gliding out to the right way. My shoulders and arms are starting to get a little better. It'll take time and progress. But I'm so grateful to be here today because I think that if we remember Reverend Dr. David H. Ring, I remember him every day. He helps me get through a lot of stuff, Course in Miracles. But I'm so happy that today I've been able to move my life forward instead of worrying about the past. And then, of course, believing in everything that I believe in. And then coming here every Sunday and feeling the love around and knowing that somebody around who's listening all the time that gives me that little encouragement to get better and better as things are progressing. And that's why today I'm grateful that I'm alive and moving forward. I'm not homeless anymore, I'm not struggling in that part, but I'm working on getting a better solution to make my life, comfortable. Thank you.
There's a concern that I imagine most of us have. It's kind of an elephant in the room, and it is, of course, the election. I just wanted to say that I wanted to acknowledge that we're probably all very concerned about this, and that my own hope is that the election is fair and decisive. Fair and decisive. Can we join in our closing hymn? This is from Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. This is his rendition of Schiller's Hymn to Joy, which I gather is not a very good German poem. And the words into which it's translated into English in our hymnal are also a little clunky. But it's about joy. It's about being joyful. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Am I correct in assuming we're not going to sing the German verses?
We're not going to sing the German, just the English. So just 2 verses.
No, Jim.
May ours be a religion that, like sunshine, goes everywhere. Its temple, all space. Its shrine, the good heart. Its creed, all truth. Its ritual, works of love. Amen.